All right, we're here with Tom Doak, renowned golf course architect, and we're going to talk about your latest design, Sedge Valley at the Sand Valley Golf Resort. What was the inspiration behind this design?
When I traveled in the UK in 1982 and 1983, some of my favorite courses were places that weren't really on the rankings or on American radar, because as cool as they were, you know, they were par 67 or 68 and they were barely over 6,000 yards. And back then people just didn't take that seriously as a great course. You know, a great course had to test really good players. Most of those courses are on small pieces of land, they're really close together, you play really fast, which to me is the greatest form of golf there is, because you can go home in 2.5 hours or you got time to go around again. And so I'd always thought I'd like to be able to do a course like that, someplace where it would really have an impact. And I was really surprised when Michael Kaiser called me one day and asked me to have a look at the land in this part of Sand Valley. He liked the idea of doing something shorter, and he thought maybe if you looked for something shorter on that site, you would get somewhere. I talked to him a little about those 6,000 yard courses I loved, and Swinley Forest and places like that, and he had played a couple of them. And he said, okay, well, take a look at it and see what you can find.
With this site, what made it particularly great for a smaller version of golf?
You know, I guess it's that it's fairly hilly, especially the first part of it, and those swells from one ridge to the next are, except for number 3, they're not 450 yards apart, they're shorter. So if you tried to have a bunch of back and forth holes in a tighter area, you'd either have a bunch of blind holes or a bunch of short holes. You know, you're just not getting over the next ridge for something longer. But Michael said he was actually thinking even shorter than, you know, he was thinking like 5,000 yards and just kind of a family thing. But it's not a small piece of land. It's not like 130 acres and close together. It takes up a lot of space. You know, I think Michael was probably thinking with the smaller course that he wouldn't get much farther than where the 8th hole and the 15th hole are. And he wouldn't go out into that flatter ground out beyond, and you could probably get a smaller course in there with things a little closer together. But, you know, I just did the same thing I always do. I started looking for some good holes on the topo map, and I found a few pretty quick.
Your routing process, figuring this out, you use a topo map, a topography map, and then do you go walk it? How's the process of finalizing a routing, figuring out the routing you like best on a map that has, you know, sometimes infinite possibilities?
First step, get some things on a map and go see what they're like. 95% of the time, as long as there is a map, I start and I try to put at least a few holes on a map before I go there, because it's hard to get a sense of scale when you're actually out on the ground. You know, if you've done that homework even a little bit, you know it's 350 yards to that next ridge. And if you just stand there looking at it, you're trying to guess, is that 320 or is it 430? And then see what you see out there that catches your eye, and then try to figure out how you're putting them together. You can get a pretty good sense of the space, and not just like, you know, what the contours are doing, but also what you'd be able to see from that tee. Like there's a wall of trees there, or the ridge behind the green, you're not going to really see over that from where you're playing. So you kind of get a sense of the space you're playing into as well as the contours in it.
What part of the property really was the one that you gravitated towards? Was the core hillier part of the property, or did you really love the flatter ground? Was there a part of it that kind of was always there through all the iterations?
To me, the stretch of golf that was going to get people's attention right away was 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, 3 and 4 are two big par fours back to back, and everybody's probably thinking, wait, I thought this was a short golf course. This hole is like 450 and I've got to hit over big cross bunkers with the second shot. And the next hole is like, that's a really cool crown fairway. I just haven't seen enough tee shots on it yet to know that people are landing where I think, and the ball, you know, if you lose it right a little bit, it'll go way down the hill to the right. And if you hook it left a little bit, you might get into that fairway bunker. That's the idea. When I got the topo map and started looking at it, the first thing that grabbed my attention right away was I didn't know the rock outcropping was there yet. The abrupt contours in that little area, the site for the 6th green, site for the 15th green, those were kind of like sharp little features on the map, and I was like, there's something good there. The first version of the routing I did for Sedge Valley, I didn't know that there was one little section in there that he didn't own and that he couldn't get, right where the rocky ridge is by the 7th green. Instead of playing toward 7 green, I was going to play up to the right, up to the rocks, and then come back down off the other side with another par 3. It wasn't long after that I found, oh, we can't do that. But that was how the idea of having back-to-back par 3s in that corner came to be. I was trying to deal with that big elevation change and what would work around that. And then the 5th hole is the last hole that I designed. We kind of crammed that into the routing. The 6th hole, I always wanted to be like it was. For a long time, I figured the 4th green would go further back into that bowl where 5T is now, and then you just walk up there to 6T. And none of us liked that, but on the plan before we started construction, I had moved 6T closer to make the gap shorter. We didn't like that angle, it didn't look as good. You didn't see the fairway correctly for the short par 4. So eventually it was like, well, why don't we pull them apart just a little farther and try to fit a very short par 3 into here. But it was a cool little space. It was a tough place to build a green. There was a lot of slope there, so the green is really skinny because of that. And we dug the big bunkers to like get the material to hold it and get a flattish green in there. We probably spent more time building that green than any other one there. Not just because we had to move a little dirt, but trying to make the green just the right size where you could hold it without it going in the back bunker, but it hit a pretty good shot, and you know, or you could like bail up to the left and have a backstop and not worry about that so much, but you know, you might be aiming way away from the pin on a short par 3, which is a strange thing to do. But I think that hole's turned out really neat.
So then you have like a little bit less dramatic land from a golf design and building golf holes standpoint. What are you trying to do there?
There were probably 3 or 4 different iterations of the routing along the way as just how far to go out and what to do with the flatter ground once you got past number 7. Basically 9 and 10 are pretty flat except for where coming off the tee on 9 and just around the green side on number 10. And then it was flat and pretty open on where 11 and 14 are. 14's kind of built into the side of the valley. And we, you know, there was plenty of room to just come back parallel with 11 on flat. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to start getting back up into the hills with 14. And that was like the one hole where we moved some dirt. We were still building the Lido when we were doing the routing for Sedge Valley. And Michael was like, we moved a bunch of dirt over there and it worked out really well. Do you want to do something more dramatic in here? Because we got all the sand in the world, we could dig deep, so we could kind of do anything we want. Well, a big part of the character of Sedge Valley is the native vegetation around it. If you move a lot of dirt, you're not just moving it in the narrow band where the fairway is. You're going to kind of do it over a broader area to tie it in. In the States, you're more used to seeing more manufactured courses, and the part that's been torn up and redone gets pretty far out away from the hole to cover most of the places that you might be. It's a blessing to have a site that has good native stuff on it where you don't have to tear up into there, because A, it makes the golf course look like it's always been there, but B, it adds some challenge as opposed to just grassing it and trying to figure out if you're going to let the grass grow along around. That was the thing I was worried about wouldn't fit in. It would look like, yeah, they did a bunch right here. So we did do a bunch in 14 fairway, but you've still got the trees on the right side of it, and you've still got the native stuff on the left side of it, and you don't know.
You know, I feel like what's become really a regular occurrence with a lot of new courses is it's just an auto driver. You know, and
Right.
a few times when I played Sedge, there are a lot of times where I could hit driver, but it doesn't really look like I want to put it up. Like, I don't want to deal with the issues here, I'll lay back. And to me, we have lost a little in new design, the stimulation of what club do I hit off the tee.
I mean, when I started building courses on my own with High Point, you know, I deliberately made the fairways wider and gave you more room to play. That was one of the hallmarks of my work early on when other guys weren't doing that yet. And it's just kept going that way for 35 years. The best new course is often the biggest new course. You're just inviting everybody to swing for the fences, and it doesn't matter because they're still gonna find it. There's not as much penalty for the drive being offline and what kind of shot you're gonna have to hit if you get there. One of the things about letting people just hit the ball 50 yards offline and still have a shot. If you've got a 450-yard par 4 and you make it really wide because everybody's gonna hit driver. If it's a fairly long second shot, it being well to the right or well to the left doesn't change that shot so much. You know, you're still coming in to the front of the green, kind of. If you look at a hole like 6 at Sedge Valley, or a couple of the other short par 4s there, they're kind of funneling in narrower as they go. But if you hit driver and fan it green high, now you're not coming into the front of the green at all. You're coming in sideways to a really narrow target between bunkers on one side and a bunker and a native hill on the other. And that's way harder. The short par 4s are the ones that really punish the guy who just hits a drive in the wrong place.
When you finish a project like this, you know, as an architect, when somebody walks off Sedge, do you think about how you want golfers to feel when they finish playing?
Not all the time. It's like you don't, if it's really good, people will experience it for themselves, and they're going to have very different takes on it, and that's fine. I don't like it when people write out the yardage book and tell you every single thing about what you're supposed to see and what you're supposed to feel and how you're supposed to play the hole. It's like, that's not so interesting. It's one thing about doing what we do is like explain all the secrets behind it. It's like, you're supposed to try to figure it out. You know, I think Sedge, the typical golfer experience is going to be, you made a couple mistakes and they cost you, but you also had several chances for birdie in there, and you're starting from a base of 68 or 72. So when you go add it up at the end of the day, it's like, I was 8 over, oh, that's only 76. But you're also going to be like, that could have been 72 if I hadn't messed up the drive on number 6 there. So to me, what you want the experience to be is, I think I could do better. I want to go back and play that again.